Good evening, and welcome to another Hangout with Brittany, Olivia, and Karen. Tonight we're going to be talking about national technology standards in education. My name is Karen Trice, and I will be introducing you to two of the technology standards in education. Can you guys see my screen? Let's see if I can share this here. How about now? Sorry, I can't see. Could you see my screen? Okay. Okay, so it's national technology standards in education. The first technology standard for teachers is facilitate and inspire student learning and creativity. Teachers use their knowledge of subject matter, teaching and learning, and technology to facilitate experiences that advance student learning, creativity, and innovation in both face-to-face and virtual environments. This includes prompting, supporting, and modeling creative and innovative thinking and inventiveness, engaging the students in exploring real-world issues and solving authentic problems using digital tools and resources, promoting student reflection using collaborative tools to reveal and clarify students' conceptual understanding and thinking, planning, and creative processes, and also modeling collaborative knowledge construction by engaging in learning with students, colleagues, and others in face-to-face and virtual environments. The National Technology Standard in Education for Students, number 2, is communication and collaboration. Students use digital media and environments to communicate and work collaboratively, including at a distance, to support individual learning and contribute to the learning of others. This allows students to interact, collaborate, and publish with their peers, experts, or others employing a variety of digital environments and media. Communicate information and ideas effectively to multiple audiences using a variety of media and formats. Develop cultural understanding and global awareness by engaging with learners of other cultures, and contribute to project teams to produce original works or solve problems. An example of a lesson plan for the teacher's standard number 1 is one I found here on Teachers First. It's called 3 Billy Goats Gruff. And this lesson hits on many aspects of the first standard. In the start of the lesson, the teacher reads the story 3 Billy Goats Gruff every day. With each passing day, the teacher has the students chime in on the repetitive words within the book until the students are able to say the words by themselves. This models and engages the students into the story, and they learn as a group. Next, the students are asked to create their own versions of the story. Students may use technology if they would like, but are not required, and may simply use traditional tools such as color pencils, crayons, paper, glue, etc. The students will then share their stories in small groups and with parents. This touches on the standard in that the students can now self-reflect and also collaboratively publish with their peers and parents. This would also touch on many of the technology standards for students. One possible way students can use technology in creating their books is called Bookemon. This is a website I found, and students can actually create their book in either way that they choose to. While they use regular pen and paper, you can then upload their pictures that they've drawn with colored pencils and crayons, and it can be published into a nice hardcover book. Or they can actually go to the website itself here and create the book using complete technology with shapes and pictures right on the computer, and then have it published into the same hardback book.
Karen, I have a question really quick for you. With that Bookemon, how would you plan to use that in your classroom? Would you plan for them to upload stuff in your classroom or send them home with this website?
This would be something that we would do as a class. When I was in elementary school, this was an option we could do. We had to create the book as the assignment, but if we wanted it published in this hardback book, our parents had to pay to have that done. But it's still an option, and it's a nice memento for the students, especially at a younger age. It gives them that incentive and encouragement that they can look back on it to see their strides in their education.
Thanks.
Okay. So then, an example of a lesson plan from the student standard was this one I found on Teachers First as well, called the Rock Family. And this lesson works well with Technology Standard 2 for students. The students are asked to research the 3 types of rocks and share their findings in a concept web using an online digital tool called Read, Write, and Think. Students first research the different types of rocks and collect their information. They then have to organize their findings into a concept web that clearly communicates the information they want their audience to know about the rocks they researched. They use the online tool to create their web. These can then be printed or published to a class website or blog. All the students will be able to share their webs to the class and teacher and their peers, what they learned, and then also with others, so that they can kind of see who learned what and who missed something, or they've all learned different facts from each other. So look at the tool itself. This Read, Write, Think. It's a web creating tool, so we can go in here and start. We would name this called Rocks, and we'll use circles, and you start webbing. So then you would add a circle, and we can move it into the center here, and let's call it just Rocks. And then we would add another circle over here. Oops, excuse me. And this would be igneous. And then we're going to add another circle, and
Karen, while you're typing, I see that zoom button in the top right-hand corner. Does that make the whole screen zoom in, or the text, or how can we help readers who might not be able to see that text there?
It looks like it's zoomed in as far as it can go. I believe when you get to the finished publishing part, you can make it larger as well. But you would need to zoom out as you get more and more expanded in your web. So they would have the 3 different types of rocks, and they would connect them. Like that, and then they could go on from the sedimentary and create their facts in other such circles. So it would be a way for them to be able to present their facts, but also create the web as well. They get the technology um, part of that as well. Any other questions on this tool? So in conclusion, 3 things that I feel teachers need to consider when using the technology standards is it available to all students or just some? Can you modify the lesson to make it work efficiently and effectively for all students? Is the technology that you're using in the lesson available to all the students, or will the lesson have to be modified into groups or centers due to the limited technology? So that's something to consider is, yes, you can use the lesson and technology, but you may need to break it up into small groups so that because of the limited technology resources. Another thing would be, will incorporating technology into the lesson be effective or distracting? Yes, technology is great, but sometimes it allows too much independence with students and they get to tinkering. So it's important to make sure that we know our students and know if they can handle and they're mature enough to incorporate technology into a regular lesson. And point 3 would be, can I fairly assess every student on the lessons, whether they choose to use technology or not? This would be as far as I would have to make sure I had a rubric that would incorporate and include non-technology assignments as well as the ones that choose to use technology, so that they're both being fairly assessed on their knowledge of the content and not on their use of technology or not of technology. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't really have a question. I just had a quick remark, Karen. Your
Sure.
first standard for the teachers, you mentioned that the teacher needed to inspire creativity for the students, and I just really like that standard. It goes in almost any subject, but with technology, it's great. The more we're getting technology in the classroom, the more kids and parents might be scared, and the more we as teachers need to help them and make them see that it's not scary. So I really like that standard you focused on. You made some really good points on it.
Great, thank you. Yes, incorporating technology and creativity is very important. It gives the students their self-esteem. It makes them feel good about themselves, and I mean everybody wants to feel that good they've done a good job. So I think that's important. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to pass it to Brittany, and she's going to tell you a few more of the standards.
Okay, so my name's Brittany Kirby, and I too focused on 2 standards for technology. I'm going to pull up my screen so you guys can see what I'm viewing. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? Okay, so the National Technology Standards. The first one I focused on was Teacher Standard 3, and this was that teachers should model the digital age work and learning. Now, this entails that teachers exhibit knowledge, skills, and work processes representative of an innovative professional in a global digital society. So what does all this mean? It means that the teacher should really demonstrate fluency in technology systems. Before they go and show their class, the teacher should really themselves know how to use the technology. And the teacher should be able to collaborate with students, peers, parents, and community members using digital tools. So beyond the newsletters and things we're used to our children getting in their folders coming home, let's go beyond that and let's use technology. Let's use our resources the way we need to. It also involves communicating relevant information effectively. So how do we use this tool? Even if I, the teacher, know how to use it, I want to make sure that my parents and everybody else know how to use that tool. And I also want to model and facilitate effective use of current and emerging digital tools to locate, analyze, evaluate, and use information resources to support research and learning. So I want to use everything. I want to use the latest and greatest. It's 2016. I want to see what's new and came out this year. I don't want to be using stuff from 2013 if I don't have to. So one thing I found to show you guys
Brittany, I really like
was,
that you said about the teacher knowing how to use the technology. I think that's really important. I've been in many classrooms and the teachers have the technology and one, they don't know how to use it, or it sits there unused because they haven't had the time to learn the technology. I think that's important that the teacher takes the initiative and learns the technology and how to use it to be the best effective to their students. I really think that's important.
Brittany, if I could comment,
go ahead.
I also, on my last slide, one of my concepts or conditions that I thought was important was also that students are knowledgeable in the technology that they are presenting to their class. So I agree with you on that point.
Yeah, and off of both remarks you guys just made, I really feel that it's the teacher is the student's main source. So if the teacher's not showing them, the student won't know. And I know we all as teachers have a lot to take care of, but it's just another responsibility we need to add on if we want to use it in our classroom the right way. So one thing I found to show you guys, unfortunately, there wasn't really a lesson plan or anything, but there's this website called Otter. In technology in education class, we use a program called Wix. Now, Otter, as I'm about to pull up, you'll see, it's very similar to Wix, but Otter allows the teacher to upload homework. It also has a spot for a classroom calendar, a class announcement sender, which, get this, it can either email or text parents and students, and it also provides document storage. So similar to a cloud, but it's on this website for the kids, parents, whoever need to access it. And I think this is the coolest thing with the way society is going with technology. Students may submit assignments via Twitter, Facebook, or email accounts. So it seems pretty overwhelming, but let me show you guys how this works. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. I need to get you guys to the website that I'm in now. Okay, so this is what an Otter page would look like if you had it set up for your classroom. So this, of course, would be the teacher. This is a sample. So we're going to look at Mr. Brown's page. This would be his generic professional photo with a nice little background, something that represents maybe what he teaches or his personal interests. And like I said, parents and students can have this. So he's going to have all his contact here so it can never be lost as long as you have this website. And right here is where students could upload their assignments. So of course, you would need to fit the needs of all learners. You could have it turn in paper, but many kids stay active with Twitter, Facebook, and even email. So right here is where they can do all this in this section. Instead of sending out a bunch of emails to all the individual parents, we have this section right here where Mr. Brown can put his reminders and announcements and can link them to Facebook and tweet them. If anybody has any questions, they can reach him right here or by his email we saw at the top of the page. Just a generic calendar to communicate with parents and students. And then right here, he could put anything he needs to see. So we can see that he has the syllabus right here. So that would take parents to the syllabus. Go and see the next thing. I apologize in advance, guys. I'm having a problem with sharing my screen. My Prezi's actually downloaded to my computer, so I have to keep switching for you guys to see. Let me take you back to my Prezi.
That website looks very interesting. I like that it actually sends texts and stuff. It's up with the latest technology. It's the way that the students learn, the way they interact, and unfortunately, some of the parents don't necessarily always interact that way. But it's definitely doesn't give kids an excuse as to why they don't have their homework submitted or why it's not done on time, because they have more than one aspect and means to remember and reminders and how to submit it. I think it's a really neat tool. I would be interested in incorporating that into the classroom for sure.
I've experienced Wix before, and I really do enjoy Wix for what it's there, but the Facebook and Twitter was something that definitely turned me on to this website. I thought it was really cool and keeps up with the students are into. So beyond the students thinking it's cool to submit their homework, they might even, we're not there to be our students' friends, we are there to be their teachers, but it may build a better bond between student and teacher.
Absolutely.
So if we keep going, Now we'll visit Student Standard 1. Student Standard 1 was creativity and innovation. So Karen, you remarked a bit on this about the teachers, but now I'm going to focus on it with the student a little bit. So this standard wants students to demonstrate creative thinking, construct knowledge, and develop innovative products and processes using technology. So once again, what exactly do they mean by this? Let's look at it a little bit more in depth. The standard wants students to apply what they already know, but they want them to use that knowledge to generate new ideas, products, or processes. They want them to create original works as means of personal or group expression. So we're going to use our new knowledge to create new things, and then we're also going to create original works. And while they're doing that, it would be nice for them to use models and simulations to explore the complex systems and issues. That way they do have a little bit of help. And also to be able to identify trends and forecast possibilities. Now, this is relevant in a lot of different situations, but as we're speaking a lot tonight, it's forecasting trends and possibilities and identifying them. It's very important with the way technology is going today. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a full lesson plan for you guys, so I found an activity that a lesson plan could definitely be based off of. I haven't mentioned this yet, but this sketch toy that I'm about to mention and that Otter website were both taken from Teachers First. There was a lot of things on Teachers First where students could be creative and they could be innovative, but it didn't really use technology in every way I thought it could, and this website that I'm about to show you guys really spoke to me on a different level, and I thought it would be really beneficial for student and teacher to base a lesson plan off this in many different situations. In elementary school, students do focus a little bit on engineering and developing. I remember in my 5th grade classroom, we actually developed an amusement park talking about motions with the pendulum and things. So we're going to focus on that aspect. This resource is called Sketch Toy, like I mentioned before, is from Teachers First. On this website, students can draw and design new toys. They could draw and design anything, but we're going to focus on toys for the purpose of my presentation. They can draw on the grid you're about to view, or they can even trace an image from a computer. And I think one of the coolest things is that from a presentation point of view, the students will be able to save and replay their step-by-step drawing. So as they're showing their peers, they can go through their thought process. And it's not just for younger students. The older students can use this to discuss square units and other mathematical concepts. Let me pull this one up. Excuse me one second again while I switch so you guys can see my screen. And once we go there, unfortunately, it will already be drawing a little bit. But as you see, I had a student for me create a toy that they would have wanted to invent. And the young boy created a roller skate. So down here you see he put the circles, and it's moving. But if you get tired of skating, he put that it's got like a jetpack. It's not really fire. He said it was just air. And then there, when he got tired of skating, he could zoom everywhere. So he used his imagination to do this, and he used all the tools. I'm going to pull up a blank one and show you guys real quick. But it's moving, it's everything. We watched him step by step draw it. Let me pull up a new one and show you guys. We're going to get a new one. Make sure you guys can see my new screen. Everything's looking good. So just to show you guys a little bit about it, up here are all your buttons. And you can take and change the size. So we're going to use a little one. And the older kids, when I'm saying square unit, is these little squares right here represent 1 square unit. So not science, technology, but also math. And you can just draw away whatever you want with your computer. You can make it vibrate right here. So I can make it vibrate a little, which you can barely see, or I can make it vibrate a lot. And you can also change the color of your lines right here. I have all sorts of vibrating things. Now, I just think this tool, it's pretty generic in what it offers, but it definitely, I think that's great in what it is. It's using technology from what the students know, which is what we want them to do. Apply the existing knowledge. So we know about graph paper, and they're going to generate new ideas, which would be their toys. I think this is very useful for what the students already know.
Brittany, I think this would be great with tablet technology, even the touchscreen technology where you can use a stylus, because then they could even get more precise and more, precise on their drawings on the graph paper, almost like it was essentially graph paper and pencil. I think
That
that would be a great with the tablet and the stylus technology.
That's a really good point you make, Karen, because as you could see, I was using the mouse pad on my laptop, and it is very hard to stay on these lines. I know a lot of the laptops now have touchscreens, and I thought of that. I never thought about the tablet. Thanks for that input.
Also, Brittany, I know that Karen's point was really good also because my son, even though he's a lot younger than school age, he loves drawing on tablets. So I know that that hands-on opportunity students will really appreciate.
I would have loved to share a lesson plan with you guys, but like I said, this sketch toy, it just spoke to me. There's so much you can do. I could write a lesson plan from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade with this, probably if I really wanted to. This just really spoke to me. Let me go back to my Prezi one last time, and I will wrap my presentation up for you guys. So that was Sketch Toy. And in conclusion, I think there are some things we need to think about when we're using technology in our classroom, as Karen mentioned. Any teacher can actively use these standards that I have mentioned in their classroom, but in order for all teachers, students, and parents to benefit from these lessons, several things must be considered. Ongoing professional learning. Technology changes in the blink of an eye, as we all have seen. In order for teachers to properly use the standards in the classroom, they must stay up to date on all new information. Without completing this step, implementation of technology could be very challenging. Some ideas I have for ongoing professional learning would be any teachers' workshops that are available, just tinkering in your free time, seeing what's around, maybe buying something that interests you and playing with it. Joining a blog, I think that's a great way to learn, or video chatting. It's a great way to learn about people from distances that you wouldn't be able to reach in another way. Reading research papers, there's constantly education research journals and scientific research journals. Just stay up to date on what's in the news. And taking risks, I think this is really important from a teacher standpoint. If we're not brave and we don't take risks, we can't expect our students to be brave and take risks. Now, some of the ideas I just mentioned, you can find them in the Technology Standard 5 for teachers, but they're just a very important thing that I think go along with any standard that they mentioned.
Brittany, to add to your list there, I think we can all learn just from this experience of creating this Hangout that we should just even suggest or mention it to our friends and peers to see if they have any suggestions or have they tried it, how did it work, those such things, then they can maybe give you some kind of feedback or help even as well.
If I could
Yeah.
comment, my mom noticed or she's heard about this project that we were doing and she was pretty excited about Google Hangouts because she had never heard about it before. And so I think I agree with you, Karen, introducing new technology to other people, not only ourselves, gets them excited also.
And I have to admit, now that we're all in here and we've figured out our glitches, we've all gone through a learning process in the past couple days, but I think we're all really content and excited now that we're in here and we can share information. It's nice to be able to see everybody from our own little space.
Absolutely.
So I also have a third idea, or sorry, my second idea, excuse me, in conclusion, engaged communities. Support from the community is important for funding. It continues to prove vital for student success. So there's a lot of stuff we get from having an engaged community. When parents support their students and the way they're learning, the student will be engaged and parents will be more willing to volunteer. Supportive communities can also provide students with equal access. For example, libraries, if a student doesn't have a computer or technology at home, but the library supports what the school's doing, hopefully they'll make sure that all students can come to that library when they're not in school and use those tools in the school. Along with this, when parents are willing to do their homework with their students and they understand what's going on, homework's going to be a more enjoyable experience for everyone, which in turn is going to relate to more learning and happier learning happening. I think if the community supports you and they want to have what's around, they're going to maybe even provide technology field trips. Let's go see what's in the community. We might use computers in our classroom, but let's see how they're used in the real world. And not only will libraries support the students, but hopefully more funding from the county and more support from the county will lead to more technologies in the school, what we really need the students to have and where we need them to have it at. And finally, Assessment and evaluation, no matter what you're doing, the standards I mentioned, Karen, this could go with the standards you've mentioned, and I'm sure Olivia, they'll be able to go with the standard that you will mention. There's 3 levels we need to assess on: teacher, right here, student, and ICT and digital resources. Now, the teacher, what is teacher effectiveness? What does this mean? Why is the teacher evaluating if they were effective? Well, they need to see if they were grabbing students' attention with the technology. As Karen mentioned, it can be overwhelming, so it may not work for each lesson. They need to see if they were effective with how they use the technology. Did they understand it? Do they need more help? The student, why are we assessing and evaluating if they are successful and engaged? Well, we want to see if they were successful with what we expected them to do that day. Is there something we can change with the technology or in the lesson in general to make it better for them? If they grasp the contents from the day, and could they use the technology properly? This goes along with the teacher. Is there something we need to change with the technology for the student to use it successfully? And the moment technology is introduced in the classroom, it's all going to be a learning experience for everybody. So everybody just needs to be patient and work together. And once the wrinkles are rolled out, it'll all be better. And the more and more teachers and students use it, the more and more they will become adept to it and want to use it more. Finally, the ICT and digital resources, where we are getting our stuff from. We need to assess and evaluate if there's changes or suggestions. So at the end of our lesson, if there's anything that we as the teacher may have suggestions about while we were using it, we should report that to the appropriate person, whether that's the school who's giving us that piece or we need to write a letter to the company. We just need to make sure that everything's working smoothly, and that in turn will help all other educators. If I have an issue at my school and I write to that digital resource or the IP for that program, hopefully, Karen, when you're at your school, they can help you. You might have had the same problem but didn't experience it till after I did. So that helps on communication on a wide level too. And here I just included some of my references if anybody's interested in seeing anything I found. Just to note, the Scurry Labs and the Sketch Toy both came from Teachers First that I cited down here just so you guys could see. But that about wraps it up for my presentation. Does anybody else have any more questions or
Brittany, I
concerns?
have one thing I'd like to add. When you said about incorporating technology, I think it's important for teachers to also remember is we shouldn't be creating a lesson plan solely around technology, because technology is not always reliable. It's great when it works, but it's not always reliable. And if you have a lesson plan created solely around that technology, then you have to think of something at the last minute to throw in that place if your technology is not working, or you completely lose a whole day of teaching that lesson because that technology that you have based around that lesson is not working. So you could really lose a whole day. And it's important to remember that we need to be able to be flexible. Yes, we like to use technology, but we also need to know that it might not always work. So that's something to always keep in mind.
Karen, I couldn't agree more. I think as a teacher, it's very important to have that backup plan. If the technology doesn't work, I don't want to just have my students write a paragraph on something that's not relevant to them. I want them to stay on topic. So technology lesson plans are challenging to write because we do need to have the plan B slipped in there and in the back of our minds too. That's a really good point. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay, well, if nobody has any more questions, I'm going to pass it over to Olivia to share a couple more standards with us before we go tonight.
Thank you, Brittany. My name is Olivia Rossback, and I am now going to share my screen so that you can see the standards that I chose. One minute, if you don't mind. I'm trying to find the screen I need to share. Okay, can you guys give me a heads up if you can see my screen? You can't see my screen? Okay, hang on. Alright, if you guys could just give me a moment to um, try to open my Prezi. I apologize for the delay.
That's fine. It just creates the point and backs the point we just made. Technology doesn't always work.
While Olivia's working to get
Right.
her screen up for us, I just, this came upon me too. It's really important to help instill patience in your students too, because things don't always come up, and we do want to use technology with our kindergartners and first graders, but we have to admit that they're not the most patient children there are yet. So teaching them to be patient and maybe finding fun ways to do things while you're trying to get something up for them is definitely important to keep technology in there with them.
Thank you, Brittany, for commenting while we are waiting. Alright, I'm going to try again to share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Alright, awesome. Okay. So the two standards that I chose, the first teacher standard that I chose was standard number 2, and it says the standard is for teachers to design and develop digital age learning experiences and assessments, to use tools and resources to change the way students are presented with content to address all learning styles. They want teachers to use multiple technology opportunities to allow students to be creative and use critical thinking on their own work. And
Olivia, not to interrupt you, but really quick, I don't know, Karen, if you're experiencing the same issue. On my screen, it says, so it's on Olivia's screen. It says click to exit full screen. Can you? Oh, hold on. I think. Okay, we're good now. I think there might have been a delay, Olivia. I'm sorry for interrupting.
if I press present again, will you still be able to see my Prezi?
Yes.
Okay. Are you good, Brittany?
It's still saying click to exit full screen mode. Do you see that on your screen, Olivia?
I don't, but I can still.
Oh, it just went away. It just went away. Go ahead.
Okay, it won't let me present it.
That's okay. Just click through your slides. We can see it large enough. That way we can still get your presentation. You don't have to necessarily present it. That's fine.
All right. So that was my teacher standard, and this allows teachers to find new ways to incorporate technology in their classroom to present content. And my student standard was standard number 4, which says critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making. So they want students to be able to do this, using critical thinking skills to identify a reason for research, manage and plan ways to complete a project, and use appropriate digital tools and resources to find solutions to research problems. So 2 examples My first example that I found on Teachers First for my teacher standard was this website, and the caption was "Animal Exploration, See Who's Out There," and it's a website that has animal pictures, and if you click on the picture of the animal, it'll give you more information about that animal. And I'm going to try to open it, and hopefully you guys will be able to see what it looks like. Okay, I don't think it's going to open, but this website was a great way for teachers to have technology in their classroom because it had a bunch of different ways to address different learning styles. It had pictures if you learned visually. If a student needed to see the picture of the animal, it had the picture. It gave teachers the opportunity to read content about that animal if a student needed to hear information rather than just see it. And if a student learned hands-on, they could have the option of maybe walking up to the screen as the teacher was presenting and pointing to whatever animal that was that they were going to learn about that day. And as we talked about before, obviously you need to have a backup plan because, as we all know, technology doesn't always work. So if perhaps this website wasn't going to work for a teacher one day, she would have to have the background knowledge of those animals that she was going to present to her class.
Olivia, not to interject, but before you move off this slide, do you think you might be able to copy and paste it up there in your, pull up a new tab in your browser there?
Yeah, I tried to highlight it and right-click to copy it, and it doesn't give me the option.
Karen, do you know the shortcut for a Mac to copy? I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I know there's a shortcut on your keyboard.
I don't. I think it's the little swirly key. I think it's still C. If you push that and the little swirly key. I don't know what the button's called down at the bottom. It might be the Apple button.
Like Command?
It might
It's
be.
not
I
a big
think it
deal if
has
you
like
can't.
something Apple. I don't know. Sorry.
I mean, the only other option would be to type it into a URL. Should I do that?
If you don't mind, you can try that. If you feel comfortable trying that.
I would love to see the website if you could get it up, Olivia. I don't mean to be difficult, but
All right,
I
hang
would
on.
love to see what you found.
Okay. Can you guys see this? So this was the website, and it'll make sense more after I do my student standard because I have a lesson for that example, but this could go along with the lesson. You see that you have the pictures here, and the teacher would just click on the animal and they would be able to have information about that animal. And down here they also have games and like word searches and stuff. If the teacher wanted to assess a student, maybe she could find a game that would assess the student's knowledge of whatever she had presented in class that day. So then my student example, The standard was to use critical thinking skills to research, plan, and solve problems. And I found a lesson on teachersfirst.com that was for grades 2 through 6, and it addressed science and language arts. And it was a lesson about egg-laying animals. So I thought that the teacher could divide the students into 5 groups of 5, and each group is assigned an egg-laying animal. And the one person from the group would use an iPad or find a website to research that animal. One person would use a book. One person would create some kind of report on the information that they got, but leaving the option to that student, that way they could use their creative thinking. One person would present the report, and one person would supervise or help if anyone needed help. And the reason that I left the technology really up to the student was because of the standard. The standard wanted them to use critical thinking skills and management skills to do a project. So I thought leaving the technology up to them to use that and to make an informed decision based on however they wanted to find their information, I thought that it aligned with my standard and it let students do that. But at the same time, as a teacher, you want to also be supervising and making sure that the student is using an appropriate use of technology when they're looking for information. So I would definitely still be monitoring them.
I think that's a good point. I think critical thinking, some students might not start necessarily with technology. They might start with pen and paper or pencil and paper brainstorming, and then once they get a few brainstorm thoughts, then their critical thinking and creativity really starts to get going, and then they're able to incorporate that technology piece. But some students still need that original brainstorm before they can make the leap into the technology. So I think it's a great option to be able to give them that, whether they want to use technology or not, and which form of technology.
Okay, so my last little conclusion, 3 points that are important to think about when you're using technology standards, whether you're a teacher or a student. It's important to be aware of your students' abilities. Can they do it? Are they included? Excuse me. When using technology, you have to know your students, and even just being a teacher in general, you want to know their abilities so that every student has a fair opportunity to learn in the classroom. The second point was skilled personnel. Do I know how to use this technology? And we've all hit on this point throughout our Google Hangout tonight. As teachers, if we're informed and familiar with the technology, it'll be more engaging and more interesting to students, and I think they'll be more willing to try and learn technology if they see that we can also. And I think it'll make us more relatable as teachers if students see that we can use technology just like them. My last point is shared vision. Do I have my school support, and do I have their permission? Just before using any technology in your classroom, I think it's important to consult your principal. And you never know, you might inspire, if you teach second grade, you might inspire a second grade technology tool to be used in every grade or in every second grade. You never know what your ideas could bring to the table.
Olivia, real quick while you're on your conclusion screen, I have 2 little remarks here to slip in. The student abilities, I think it's great that you mentioned that technology, as I'm sure we've all experienced, is a great way, and we really do reach a wide range of students using technology, but it's still important to consider that that may not always be the best thing for your classroom, so you need to know your students, as you mentioned. And with the shared vision, I think it kind of goes along with what I said with taking risks. It's very truthful. If you don't ask for something, you won't receive. So let's ask and see what we can get. Getting technology in more schools would be awesome.
I think the shared vision goes right with with that, I forget what you called it now, that tool where you are engaging students in Facebook. I think you need to make sure that you definitely have your school's permission and support doing that, because we all know today with students, teachers, and Facebook, it can get pretty sketchy out there. So I think definitely getting your permission and their support would definitely be beneficial if you try to incorporate that tool.
Thank you guys for your comments. So those are my references, all my stuff from Teachers First and my standards. Does anybody have any last thoughts or questions that they would like to add? Okay, if not, thank you guys for joining us in our very first Google Hangout. And stay tuned for our next Google Hangout, which will be on some technology tools that you can bring to your classroom.